Welcome to Inside Marketing with Market Surge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at Market Surge.
Hello and welcome again to Inside Marketing with Market Surge. Today I am excited to have Peyton Wilfley as my guest. Peyton Wilfley is a co-founder of AllTales, an innovative self-publishing platform that blends writing, illustrating, formatting, and print on demand into a single user-friendly hub, connecting storytellers with readers hungry for their work. In his day job in residential roofing sales, he combines strong people skills with hands-on blue-collar expertise. His favorite written stories include those found in the Bible and the Book of Mormon, as well as Alexander Dumas's The Count of Monte Cristo. His real passion, however, is on-screen storytelling. His favorite films are Life is Beautiful, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the Planet of the Apes saga. Very unique. He lives in Knoxville, Tennessee with his wife, and they're eagerly awaiting their first child in June 2025. So not far from now, your life is about to change.
Yeah, we're almost at what's today, the 7th? Yeah,
That's
we're due June 9th, so almost exactly a month out, and obviously due dates are just a guess, so we'll see.
Wow.
See what happens.
Well, congratulations. That's very, very exciting. And
Yeah,
thanks for joining today. Well, Peyton, let's start a little bit with your origin story. Tell us about how you got to this point. What inspired you to launch AllTales, and when did you realize that storytelling was your lane?
So I guess the only way to really tell this is just to tell the story, and then I'll figure out how to tell storytelling being my lane. I mean, I always grew up making little home movies and stuff like that. They're all lost to forever. Me and my neighbors across the street, I think it was actually on their video cameras too, so who knows if they kept it. But we'd make stupid little 10-minute videos of that we called a movie, of some stupid plot with typical just kid things that they think is funny and whatever. So I've always liked telling stories or making a visual product something that people enjoy. But about 2 years ago, I got the urge. I mean, what people might not know on this podcast, and you can clip this out if you don't like this, but the fact that you and I are cousins. And so I actually got 2 years ago the urge to make a children's book about our shared grandpa, Grandpa Kane.
Okay.
And so I wasn't trying to make it to be, I wasn't trying to publish it and trying to get sales or anything. It was literally just going to be a link that we'd text to all the family and be like, hey, made this for you guys. If you guys want it, great. Because I just wanted I was really inspired by Grandpa Kane. And he, just knowing who he was, just knowing his story, knowing that he grew up in the Great Depression, knowing that he fought in World War II, knowing that he even after the war, he went home and got his college degree, and then he still went on a church mission, and then he still got married, and he still served in the church a lot after that. Like, just knowing I was related to him made me not want to be basic. Made me not want to be. I wanted my grandkids to brag about me the same way I brag about him, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted my kids and my nieces and nephews and your kids or whoever's kids, right, to be able to know that's one of the people who they come from, in hopes that who knows, maybe just knowing that story allows them to or not, maybe not allows them, but it pushes them to do stuff that they normally wouldn't have done, that they normally would have been too content to do, because it's kind of like a good pressure, like, hey, I got a name to live up to. My grandpa was pretty cool. I want to at least not be too much of a footnote compared to him in the story of our family, right? And so I went into looking to see if there's like a all-in-one service that provided writing, illustrating, printing, everything all in one. And there wasn't. And I'd written a book a couple of years ago, so I kind of was aware of that. But I was just like, oh, maybe there's like a specialized children's book one. And at the time, it was 2023, AI image generation was starting to finally not be a joke anymore. It's finally not being like the classic one that people show is Will Smith. They use him eating spaghetti as like the benchmarks of AI. Yeah, and so they show like the first one was just like just a monster, like a fever dream nightmare type of thing, and then obviously it's gotten better. But it was starting to get to the point where it was getting better. And so I was like, okay, I'll try to see about going about making this with AI, because I am just casually interested in making this book. This isn't like I'm not trying to make a career out of this. I'm not trying to invest hundreds of dollars into an illustrator to do, because illustrators, like, they are talented and they deserve to be paid what they are worth. But a lot of times, what they are worth is far out of budget for someone who's just casually interested in making something, right? And
Yeah.
so, in in the natural order of things, of artists and creatives being paid livable wages and whatnot, there's a lot of stories and a lot of potential work that is dying up until AI. I think up until that's one of the things that I think AI is beautiful about, that no one's ever talking about, is that I look at, like, I drive down, I live in Tennessee, and so there is a small little Baptist church, a little chapel somewhere with a graveyard every 100 yards. Like, it's just everywhere you go on the back roads, you're seeing chapels with graveyards. And so it's I just look at those, I'm like, dude, there is so much wasted stories. Not wasted, like, they got to experience it and they got to share it with the people verbally probably, but majority of their life experiences, they didn't tell their stories, they didn't write it down, it's not preserved for their family to have in ages, passed down. And I think now with AI, what we're really on the precipice of is having it to where the extraordinary events in the average person's life can be recorded forever, rather than just being forgotten because that average person's like, yo, I got freaking a wife and 3 kids and a mortgage. I can't afford to pay this artist and I can't afford to publish this and write this in a way that my kids, if I write it in a journal, shoot, we moved and we threw it away. Gosh dang, like, it's just like, there's so many cool stories, so many great, inspiring things that could change the world, because, the next, Winston Churchill might not be inspired because they didn't know their grandpa's story otherwise than what is now available with the potential of AI. And so anyways, that's a little tangent there. But I went about trying to make this children's book about our grandpa, and I realized that AI there's still a big learning curve that you have to kind of have. And you still have subscription fees. You have to find the AI illustration program that works best for you. They're definitely not all created equal. Big problems, consistency of characters and yada yada yada. But eventually, after about 50, 60 hours of trial and error over a couple months of just dabbling here and there, I was able, let me pull it up here, I actually should have, yeah, I was able to make this book right here. Let's try to get this right here so it's not bleached out in my computer camera.
Nice.
The lighting is not the best, but I was able to make this book right here. It says right here, you can't really see it because of the lettering with the glossy cover, but The Great Life of Bobby Kane. And I was able to make a book telling his story, right? There's him on his mission, there's him getting married to grandma, but there's also the problem that you'll see here is that there's a difference in art style. So, like, this one kind of looks like the AI kind of got from one of those cartoons on Nickelodeon or something. This one looks like a 1950s cartoon. So there was this is 2023, so this is before, like, now in 2025 there's a lot more that you can do for consistency of style. You can include reference style images, or the AIs are just way better with that. So anyways, I got this book done and I realized, I'm like, AI is only going to get better. It's only ever going to get better. It's never going away. It's an invention that, whether people like it or not, they can kick against the pricks all they want, but AI is happening, right? And so I might as well. I kind of saw this as an opportunity, kind of like the .com boom, social media boom. I feel like the AI is like the new boom, right? It's kind of like, hey, get in now before too many behemoths have control of, like, too many umbrella companies own a lot of, and good luck, right? And so,
Right.
and so I was like, okay, well, I've already gone through the trial and error, and I kind of know how AI wording, how you need to word stuff to get certain results out of AI and all this stuff. I'm like, let me just see if I can make a little business out of it. If I can automate this process and find some business partner who knows how to do all the coding and stuff like that I don't know how to do, and let me just see if we can do this. So for about a year and a half, really, it was me. I was working with this guy, Tim Cap. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, very smart guy, but I think he just kind of was overcommitting himself a little bit to me, and so he kind of stringing me along a little bit. But he is, like, I could tell he wanted to work with me, but he also just had his current job
Sure.
obligations and stuff like that. So, I was kind of butthurt a little bit at first, but then I thought about it, I'm like, dude, this is a side project for him that he was like, yeah, I can see the potential in it. And so, hey buddy, so my dog is insisting I pet him. He's
Oh, yeah,
great.
I get it. Yeah, that's
He's a great Pyrenees, and so when they're inside dogs, they insist on pets. If they're outside, they're just out protecting the farm, barking and whatnot. But since we live in a suburb right now, so and so anyway, so a year and a half, kind of just conceptualizing, drawing it up, making books manually for family and friends.
okay.
Just hey, reaching out, hey, I'm working on this business. It's not nowhere near launch yet, but I want to make you a book. And so I did one for like my mission companion's mom. I did one for some girls I knew from high school who had kids, and just different, just figuring out trial and error, kind of biding time until AI was really at a point to where it's like, hey, chop chop, let's get this automated, let's get this going. And
Yeah.
so luckily, I found my co-founder Josh, and through a mutual friend, and now Josh and I are. Josh is a great software engineer, and now we're working on creating this business here. And I guess my passion for storytelling kind of stems from my childhood of wanting to make stuff that people care to watch. To now I'm like, well, I know people care to know their family stories. They care to know their friends fiction story that they've always said that they want to get around to writing, but they never got around to it because it's just a process. Or another demographic is Dungeons and Dragons communities, to where like they're coming out with these great game campaigns, or I'm sure most of them are like, dude, this would make an awesome movie. Honestly, that was a great one, and they
Okay.
can turn it into a book and try to and
Yeah.
so there's just so many possibilities with helping people tell stories. And so that's a long-winded answer, but that does lay a
Yeah.
lot of the base groundwork of who AllTales is, what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. No, I love the intro, and the lot of directions we can go. But as you talked about our grandpa, he did a great job documenting a lot of his life experiences in
Yeah.
story format. A lot of times you're left with a journal that is like a daily record, and it doesn't really have like an arc. But our grandpa had a real understanding of what makes an interesting story. He had a lot. Most of the stories he wrote down were like funny. He
Yeah.
was quite the joker, and most of the stories had like some funny arc, or they were like centered around one thing, like his that Tin Lizzy Model T that he had, and
Oh, I'm not
um,
familiar with that one.
yeah, I'll have to dig that up. But
No, I think that my mom made this with your mom, but it's like he made a little like story about this pumpkin thing, like this giant pumpkin that he grew, and he made this like little kids like just goofy thing of him taking pictures of it. Like,
oh
what am I to do
yes,
now? Should I push it? Should I roll it? And so
yes, I
uh,
remember that. I
we
remember that.
come from a family of storytellers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he's unique because I have other grandparents that didn't do the same thing, and I do feel more connected to Grandpa Kane because I have that record. So
Yeah.
there's obviously a
Well,
lot of value in that. But so let's there's several things I want to ask you about. But first of all,
yeah.
so my audience, there are a lot of business owners and business marketers, and I often tout storytelling as a really important skill to have. Wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I think I am talking to an expert. What would you say are the fundamentals of a great story? Like what, if and say if they wanted to work with you and generate, an All Tales book, what elements should be present?
I'm definitely not an expert. Just want to have that as a disclaimer as well. I'm just a guy who has opinions. I like movies for certain reasons.
Okay, all right.
Don't let this bookshelf fool you. I've read probably about 5% of the books on there. A lot of them are books that we've collected from family or friends, or like one of these that just looked nice and it was like $10. I was like, it'll look good on my bookshelf. I'll read it one day. If the power goes out, I'll read it. So that's kind of the irony of me starting this company is I'm not much of a reader, but we
Well,
are
what
designing.
do you like in stories that you've liked, for instance?
Yeah, yeah. So what I like in stories, well, and I can base it off of like my movies. I think movies
Sure.
are, personally, I'm opinionated. I like movies better than books. I think they just tell stories better. Why imagine it when you can watch it?
Sure.
And so, but one thing that I would say makes for a great story would be I don't want to rant too much trying to figure out my thoughts here, so bear with me. Let me
Yeah.
think this through here. Um, I think there's a few tenets that come up with what makes a good story. One should be a clear objective, clear antagonist, whether the antagonist is an actual person or a situation, or the antagonist is the protagonist's own lack of skill in one endeavor that they're trying to do or something like that. I think there needs to be a clear problem. I've seen movies, I've read a couple books that I'm just kind of like, what's the point of this? I know this is telling like a story, like but not all stories are created equal. Like I don't need to write down and preserve my story today of how I went to the gym and then went and hopped on roofs. And like, there's like, yeah, it's technically a story, but it's not really a story that tells anything. It just kind of is like a log of events.
Sure.
So you don't want to have a log of events. You want to have a clear objective to the story, as well as the protagonist needs to be not necessarily relatable, but at least understandable.
Okay.
I don't need to relate to I don't need to have the protagonist relate to me in any way. It could be, an African American lady in a wheelchair. I have nothing in common with her, right? At that face value. But as long as I can, relate to her and the fact that she really wants to start a business, like it could be like there needs to be something that's like you can clearly establish protagonist traits and desires beyond just their outward appearance. And then most importantly, to telling a good story, is I say that you need a good hook too.
Okay.
You need a good intro. You need a good act one. If it's a long story, if it's a short story, you need a good hook. Something that will really grab the attention. Something that will really make them want to keep reading, keep watching, keep listening. Because if you can't promise a good result you can't promise a good payout at the end of the story, especially in today's age when people are so fast paced, they don't care to spend their time listening to something that they're not sure if they're going to get a good payout on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. Yeah. You probably more so now than ever, you have to you get to the point quickly and, or get to the hook very quickly, or else they scroll on, and
Yeah.
To that point, I've noticed you have developed quite a following and you do some great content on social media and most of what I've observed is in the short video format. Tell me a little bit about like what you've experimented with, what is working from generating the video content to promote yourself and your business. Do you have any learnings along the way? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. To kind of convey the point, what I'm gonna do here, I'll do 10-second little thing. I'm in charge of the 11 to 15-year-old youth boys of my church, right? And so the reason why I'm saying this is because with them, teenagers, they don't really care for the gospel. They don't really care too much. A lot of times they're going because their parents make them go, right?
Sure.
And so my way of attacking them and addressing them and marketing really the gospel to them, trying to find a way that connects and resonates with them, is I want to make it fun first. They're not going to care if they're not having a good time, And so a lot of people in the church will go, "Oh, gospel first." They'll come and stay for the Spirit, which the Spirit's great and all, but they also have to be wanting to feel the Spirit. They have to also be open to feeling it. And so if they're coming, they're just rolling their eyes. They don't want to be there. They're not going to do that. So you got to make it fun first, and then you can talk about the substance of it all, right? It's just like kids with dinner. You got to promise dessert at the end, and then they'll eat their vegetables throughout. And so same thing with making content. That's the reason why I bring this up, is because it's the same thing with making marketing content. Some of our competitors out there, I'm so confident in our trajectory and what we're doing and our ability to succeed, is because so many of our competitors I see their social media pages and it is dismal. It's just like, some graphic with a book saying Mother's Day sale here, it gets one like, right? And this, and they have like 30, 50 followers, and they're a company that's been around for a while, and so I see that and I'm like, you guys are providing nothing of value to the medium where you guys are posting this. People don't go to social media to follow their favorite corporations updates. They don't.
Right.
They go to social media to be freaking entertained on their time off from work.
Yeah.
And so that's the tactic that we're going. Now, you said that we have a good following on social media. That's very, very, very generous. We're working on growing that still. We are
Yeah.
definitely working on growing that. And following, especially in this stage where we're at right now, following doesn't matter as much as we're trying to, especially while we're trying to discover our niche, our tactics, our ways, figuring out, doing the data analytics, following, going, okay, we use this hook, this video, the drop off after the hook goes way down after the hook. So the hook was great, but we gotta have our content be, right. So we're doing that. We're trying to figure out our way,
Mhm.
really look up to Mr. Beast in that way. He talks a lot about making good content, but ultimately, you have to make stuff that people care to watch, right? You can't just, you're, even like in this podcast here, right? When I clip this up and edit it for my own stuff that I'm going to post,
Mhm.
I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. I'm not John Travolta wearing a cowboy hat or whatever. I remember he wore like cowboy boots, and then in the 80s, and then like sales of cowboy merch just went way up, right? Like
Sure.
I'm not a trailblazer. I'm a nobody, right? And so I need to do, until I have a reputation,
Mhm.
I need to do the proven method. Not what I think looks good, what is visually getting results on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Those are the three ones that we're focusing on. And so we're just trying to make content. I'm like, okay, so for us, we're telling stories, right? We're a storytelling platform. We're a publisher. Publisher kind of, people, their eyes glaze over when you say I'm starting a publishing company. We're a storytelling platform. We're a user-generated content storytelling platform. So people can come to our website, come to our platform, make stories, post them, have other people comment, rate them, like them, buy them, stuff like that, right? So we're kind of taking a little different avenue of it, but ultimately we're all about stories. Our company, we wouldn't have a company if people didn't care to hear or read or tell stories. And
Yeah.
so our content that we are focusing our social medias on is telling stories, and not just like telling the stories of our clients. Like, that's, again, people don't want to go to social media to see success stories with little like little like the cheap, free stock image, stock music stuff that they play with a customer sitting there going, I love AllTales. They were so, like, people don't care to see that. They
Right.
don't go to social media to see that.
Yeah.
I follow Red Bull because Red Bull doesn't post about their cans. They post about cool adrenaline stunts that I'm like, this is worth my time. I'm taking a break from work. This was worth it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not being sold to, although there are logos everywhere. I'm seeing some guy jump out of a plane, flying through hula hoops, doing whatever, right? And so same approach with making content for AllTales, or making content, whether you have whatever business you have to find, okay, this is what people are consuming. This is what people cannot get enough of. This is why trends are important to follow, not to live and die by them, but they're important to kind of be aware of. Is you need to follow and provide people what they want, and then slowly steer them to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we're telling stories. Like, I'm going the approach of kind of Barstool Sports a little bit, to where
Okay.
it's not going to be just me making content. Like, as you've probably seen on some of the stuff we're posting, I have a couple different people posting. I have my buddy my buddy Brendan. He used to be one of my football teammates.
Mhm.
He is an aspiring filmmaker, so he's telling stories, but they're short little stories of, did you know behind the scenes that in this movie they did this, right? So it's kind of adjacent to what he wants to do. So that way, if he wants to shoot off and do his own thing, hey, dude, sayonara, we both succeeded. Good for you,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, and then I have my friend Sydney. She's trying to do her own stuff, so she wants to do fantasy stories. So we're working on a way to do that, right? And so, you have to provide the stuff that people want to see, and you don't
Yeah.
want to. You don't. You're not. We're not freaking Mozart in a world where there's not much music, and so it's not
Yeah.
like you're like, oh, I'm gonna trailblaze and I'm gonna force this in here because no one's gonna watch it. People are accustomed to what they're used to, so you have to take that, apply it in a way they're used to, and then you can slowly turn it into the way that benefits you, or your message, or your overall goals. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
No,
I'm a
no,
ranter, as
that's
you can't tell. I'm a ranter, so.
no, that's fine. You're a storyteller. So, and I've had a similar experience. I've had this agency for just over a year now, and at first I was trying to be helpful with my videos, like show little product demonstrations and like little cool facts and whatever. Not much to claim for a number of views or engagement. And so, over time, I've gradually evolved, and I've just exactly like you were saying. It is so important to tie into like relevant events. It's really important to be entertaining and have a hook. I think we do some great job with these interviews, and I have a lot of interesting people like you on these interview style podcasts. But by far my top podcast, which was it was like a real rough one that I like. It was just me talking to the camera solo, but the title was AI 101: Demystifying AI for Business Owners. And for whatever reason, it has like 100 times more views than anything else I've generated, and it was like my worst. So, like definitely tying into a trend. I'm sure there's 100 times more Google searches for AI 101 even than anything else. So, no, I like your experience, and I think that's helpful to learn from. So Peyton, tell me a little bit about part of your journey right now is you're working full time and you're building AllTales as you go. Now, is your intent to eventually go full time with AllTales? Is that the hope, or would you like to maintain it as a side hustle?
Oh, my hopes, and my wife, dude, my wife really loves the fact that I'm a visionary, man. I'm a dreamer. I always think I'm like, oh, that, yeah, then with this, then we can do this, then we can do this. Yeah, and so I'm never a, hey, we got one thing, we're good. It's providing me some supplement income. It's good enough. I'm always, how can I, if there is to be built upon it, I want to build upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal with AllTales 100% is to replace my day job. I do with me doing roofing inspection, sales, occasional repairs. If the repair's simple enough, it's a little bit more involved. We'll have our crew do it just to make sure that people who know more than me are doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't want to be in the blue collar field forever. It's super critical. It's a great field when it comes to consistency. You'll never ever run out of work in roofing, construction, plumbing, anything like that, right? But I also, if I have this opportunity with the current market as it is, with AI being such in its infancy, and with my this business model that's gotten some great validation and feedback, and just now we just need to execute. I would, yeah, I definitely want to go full time into this because I see I have a lot of really big goals with AllTales, to where I want us to be the biggest publisher. I want to outdo Amazon when it comes to publishing, because we're starting off with picture storybooks like children's books, but we're going to expand to chapter books, to comic books, to magazines, to all types of things, all types of written publications. Basically, we're going to make it, and then we're trying to make it to where AllTales is the number one marketplace for authors to sell their books, because we are trying to create an algorithmic model that will help authors get discovered better, right? Not just a scrolling through a massive list of things, but kind of like TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. You're seeing one at a time, but it's algorithmically recommended to you based off of your inputs that you put when you create your profile. So we're trying to do things slightly different with proven models, and so that way it'll succeed more and more and more. And so I can't just do that side, like that can't just be a side thing. I'm doing AllTales right now full time. I'm just not making money, and luckily my roofing schedule is, the job I have, that I've been blessed to be in the position I have right now. It is super flexible. I just get a certain amount of leads and a certain amount of inspections, and I can go to them whenever it's convenient for me, as long as it's within a certain a couple of days. And so I can make my schedule work however I want it to work. And so
Awesome.
I'm working both full time while still trying to be a good husband. So that's the hardest thing, is trying to. It's really easy to start a business if you're a bachelor, but
Sure.
when you have a wife who understandably will think that that you hate her and you don't love her anymore when you don't talk to her for a week straight because you're too busy working, then you got to do that. But yeah, I'm trying to make this a full-time gig, because you got to go all in. If you, to quote to quote a wise man, Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. And so right now I'm whole-assing two things with the intention of dropping one of those and just doing AllTales eventually once I can pull a little bit of a salary enough to keep a roof over our head.
Well, awesome. It's definitely something, we can all see your passion for it. And, clearly it is something that our culture needs more of, effective means to convey stories and preserve those. And, I've always loved books. I prefer them to the e-reader or to, reading articles online, just because holding it in your hand, I feel like you connect with it a little bit more than the virtual. And so I love what you're doing, love the business model, and I know you'll be successful. So, keep at it. Now, can you tell our listeners where they can find you if they're interested in learning more about your yourself or about AllTales?
Yeah, our domain is really simple, alltales.com. A little bit of a pricey one because it's so simple, but got to do it because that's key. You don't want to look off brand. And then we prefer following on social media right now over anything. We have a wait list that you can join on our website, but people don't really check their emails typically. Emails are junk, right? And so join it if you want. We'll send you an email update, but if you follow us on social media, you'll also be notified. But if you follow us on social media, it just gives us more viewership, more traction for the videos that we are making so that we can expand our reach and have our launch when we launch in a month and a half or so. We can have our launch do better. And then also just follow, shoot me a DM on there. I run all the accounts right now. I have some interns here from the University of Tennessee here in Knoxville, but they're not running the social media. They just help me with the busy work. But just shoot us a DM on there if you have any questions, or you can email us as well on our website. We have our email on there. We have contact information. So
perfect. Well, I expect some inbound traffic, and again, thank you for joining us, Peyton. And I'm excited to learn more and follow your journey. So we will be in touch, and we'll wrap it up. But thanks so much.
No, thanks so much. I know you had tons of questions on there, and because I rant, we only got to like 3 of them, but I appreciate it.
Well, I think what's important is that you told good stories, and that is, I don't think completion is, or having a Lord of the Rings length interview is as important as telling a few good stories, and I think you've done a great job. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to marketsurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's marketsurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.